Move on to our item this morning, and it's around the proposed bid to the Scottish Government's Learning Estate Investment Programme. And I will go to Mr Naylor first to briefly take us through the report, and then I'll open it up for any questions or comments from the members of the committee. Robert.
Thank you and good morning. This is a bid that we've been working on over the course of recent months, collaboration between Children's Services and Police Services, so that we might attract funding from the Scottish Government's Learning Estate Investment Programme funding. I'm going to pass you over to Gary Greenhorn to take you through the detail of the report.
Thanks very much, Robert. And again, as Robert says, this has been a joint report, very much a culmination of a year's work by officers from both Police Services, Children's Services, including Corporate Services as well, and also involved external colleagues, including the Scottish Futures Trust. So on behalf of both services, Paul and I would like to thank everyone for their contribution to getting where we are today. The purpose of the report is outlined in section 1. In summary, the purpose here is to get permission to submit a funding bid to the Scottish Government's LEAP, which is the Learning Estate Investment Programme, Phase 3, for the development of a 5 to 18 campus at the existing site at Carn Grange High School. There are 3 recommendations outlined in section 2 before the executive today. In section 3, again, we're very pleased to say that the bid encompasses all the ambitions around climate change, energy efficiency. These ambitions are reflected in the outcome specifications as detailed in section 4.4 and are set as a pre-requirement for any bid submission. In terms of the background to it, in section 4.1 to 4.3, it summarises the timelines, the key dates, the overall funding for the Scottish Government's ambitions for their overall existing LEAP programme. In section 4.3, it confirms that the initial phases 1 and 2 of the programme have committed £705 million of investment to 37 projects, which has benefited 34,000 pupils. The remaining £295 million is subject of bids to be considered under the current Phase 3 programme. Section 4.4 outlines the key outcomes that are expected from any bid from Phase 3. What I would say is, and it's referred to in a previous paper, was that COSLA leaders agreed to increase the outcome specifications from 4 to 5 and added in an outcome specification around embodied carbon at a recent meeting. So there are 5 outcome specifications that our bid is aligned to today. 4.5 summarises the distribution of funding, and as yet COSLA leaders have still got to agree the weighting of the funding that's going to be attached to each of the 5 outcome specifications. What I would say is it's difficult to get a quantum of the overall funding that's available, but the aim is to get the maximum 50% of the assessed cost. And just to reassure members that there would be, if the bid is successful, there would be a separate bid, a separate report coming to the executive that outlines in a holistic manner all of the funding available and the assessed cost. So in terms of this report being light on it, it's because the COSLA leaders haven't finalised the weighting, but a report outlining those details will come back to this executive if the bid is successful. In terms of section 5, it looks at the provision of a central secondary school to meet the needs of pupils with ASN needs. The current Carn Grange High School has been an undoubted success. However, the current challenges that is faced with the growth in pupils with severe and complex learning needs is outlined in the need for the growth in section 2.1 of the bid. In summary, when the initial Carn Grange High School was built, the capacity was up to around 190. The current complexities around meeting the growth in demand for pupils with additional support and learning complex needs is that the class size maximum for such pupils is 6. The class size maximum for pupils with moderate learning needs is 10, which means that effectively the current Carn Grange High School is operating at a lower capacity now than it was designed and built for when it was opened back in 2017. And that reflects probably the key national challenges that have been met with councils throughout Scotland, that growth in pupils with severe and complex learning needs. In section 5.3, it confirms that the council had already agreed a property strategy. One strand of the actions that came from that property strategy were to explore options for the development of an ASN campus at Carn Grange High School. This is indeed what the work the officers have done for the past year, and the culmination of this project bid today summarises the work that has been done against that agreed outcome. In section 5.4, it gives some more details of the finances that are attached to this project bid. The current estimated costings of the project are expected to be around £23 million. It's split into two elements. The new build element, which is mainly the primary school, which is about 19.3 million, and the balance of 3.7 is around the development that would overlay the existing secondary school development of about 3.7 million. It was agreed by Council on the 28th of September that as part of the capital programme review, it reprioritised the capital programme and earmarked 13.9 million for the current bid if it was successful. The balance of the 9.1 million would be borrowed against the future revenue funding stream that would accrue should this bid be successful. As part of the 9.1 million, it also reflected some of the savings and efficiencies that would accrue from a centralised provision, and that also would include part of the growth is to increase capacity for pupils. By default, that would mean that less pupils would have to go outside Falkirk for places that Falkirk can't provide, thus reducing our expenditure and saving money. The strategic aims of the project, there's 6 of them there outlined in section 5.5 of the report. The key aims of the project, this is a growth bid, and by growth we've got to create extra capacity. Within the primary sector, we're trying to increase the number of classes by 33%, from 15 to 20. And in the secondary school element, we're trying to expand secondary capacity by 10 classes. 4 of these would replace current on-site modular accommodation, and 6 of these would be new classes which would attract additional capacity. A growth in the secondary sector around 21%. Section 5.65.8 of the report looks at the strategic aim of the funding bid. In short, the strategic aim of the funding bid is to try to meet the outcome specifications in a way that maximises the revenue funding that the council would get. In short, that is what the project team have been set as a target, and that I think is what we've successfully done in terms of developing the bid. What I would say, there is complexities around that, because the overlaying of the existing secondary school development means that 6 of the classes will be built within the current secondary school accommodation, and those classes will be linked to the current heating and mechanical and engineering systems, electrical systems that are currently contained in the school. The other elements of the school, which is the primary element and 4 secondary classes, will be built as a brand new development, a separate development which will have its own heating and M&E installation. It's the new build element that we have taken advice, and it's the submission of the funding bid will focus on getting the maximum funding for that new build element. There's complexities around the decoupling of energy targets when we're looking at a holistic building that comprises of 2 separate energy and heating sources. The advice we've got from the external advisors is that the focus to maximise funding should be on the new build element alone. The new build element alone, when we've done the work in the project team against the 5 key outcomes, we're quite keen, we're quite assured that we'll deliver the top ratings in terms of what we're putting forward. In terms of section 6, if the bid is successful, a full consultation will be undertaken with all available stakeholders. Just to reassure members today that we've already discussed on an informal basis the proposals with the relevant head teachers and the parent council chairs attached to the properties concerned. In terms of section 7.3, I would like to point out that the key risk here is that if we're unable to increase ASN capacity, it increases within our own learning estate. It does give rise to a risk that we need to put some of the young people that have got severe and complex learning needs out to provision out with Falkirk. And that provision is expensive. So that is the risk that we take if the bid isn't successful, or indeed we don't manage to increase capacity. So in summary, convener, just to say that the overall development has two strands. The existing secondary school accommodation will provide within it an additional 6 classes, which will accommodate 36 pupils in the current building. A new separate building will accommodate a total of 24 classrooms, 20 earmarked for primary pupils and 4 for secondary. This gives a capacity in the new building of 144 pupils, 120 for primary and 24 for secondary. The overall bid comprises of a build of 3,760 square metres. Details of the accommodation schedule, etc. are contained in the bid itself. We're pleased to say that in terms of the specified maximum metrics of 33 square metres a pupil, our bid is well within the specified metrics as outlined by the Scottish Government and the Scottish Futures Trust. The estimated cost is 23 million, 19.3 million for the new build element and 3.7 for the overlaying of the existing secondary school. As I said earlier on, further details of the finances will be provided in a separate report as we move to financial close, which is a pre-requirement of any major project. As outlined in the bid in section 7, I'm pleased to say that Mr. Kettrick and his team has confirmed in terms of the delivery programme that our designs are so far advanced that effectively this project is ready to go if we can get the funding agreed. The details of the exact timeline of that are contained in that section 7, but basically the aim is, if the bid was successful, we'd be aiming to start on site in Easter 24 and complete the work within a 16-month project timeline to be completed in time for opening in August of 2025. Thank you, convener. Thank you for listening. Paul and I are happy to take any questions on any aspect of the bid or the report itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, for outlining the proposed bid going forward. I think anybody that's had the opportunity to visit the existing Canning Range would know just that the high quality of the building and the environment for our young people to be able to actually learn and have that social interaction. The fact that we don't have enough capacity and others don't have the experience of that same environment is something around inequalities, and it's the fact that we're looking to bring increase the capacity and not have to send children out with the council area is fitting with our closer to home strategy very much so, and indeed having the same quality of learning environment for all fits with GEFRET, getting it right for every child. So I think we're in a very good position to be able to do that. I think we were one of the first to have built a new school for children with severe and complex needs, and I know that at the opening of that, the Deputy First Minister, John Swinney, was very impressed with the facilities there. So I'd like to think that looking at the expansion that would fit with government's priorities as well, and putting the bid. We're a long way from working on the detail, and I know that there'll be a lot of work done with the staff, the pupils, and indeed the parents and the parent council. So I think we just need to remember that we're a long way from that actual fine detail, that this is just the bid at this stage, and I know that people would have lots of questions around that, but I don't think we're in a position to answer any of that just now. It's just about the principles of being able to make the bid, and I think that there's a very fine project timeline there as well, Gary, that we try and hold you to should we be successful. But we've got a good track record on all of those types of projects. So I'm more than happy to move the recommendations as in the report that we go ahead to the next stage and submit the bid for this project. Councillor Garner.
Morning, happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Spears.
Some questions. I know it's at a very early stage, but I was a wee bit perturbed with the layout drawings that you gave us. It would be better if we had a bigger view so we could take in the surrounding area. But my three questions are disruption to the existing school while this goes ahead, and also we must never forget Moray Primary that's next door. I know I've been onto roads lately, I've got flooding problems surrounding that. Is this further encroachment on any of the grounds that they presently use? The layout's not that clear, as I've already stated. So hopefully we can get a bigger plan, so we'll get a better view of where it's going to actually be positioned in, within that Grangemouth campus. And thirdly, we didn't address the parking problems for the existing Carlin Grange and the disruption in the adjoining streets. This will obviously add to that, and I don't see anything in the layout about parking.
As I said, there's a lot of questions that probably can't be answered at this stage, but I'll go to Mr. Greenhorn to answer what he can at this point.
Okay, thanks, Convener. And just to say, Councillor Spears, the three questions that you've articulated really well are issues that the project group have already were well aware of. What the convener said, and just to reiterate it, this is an outline project bid. Some of the concerns that you've outlined will take place if the project is successful, and we'll be reporting back to this executive in a way that hopefully mitigates some of the challenges you've raised. But just to reassure you, you're absolutely quite right. The three things you have highlighted have been problems that we've tried to tackle in the past with some success. Some that could be a bit more successful than others, but we are aware of it, and that will be a feature of the ongoing work should the bid be successful.
I would hate it to fail, because we failed in the past to sort out the parking problems and the disruption to the residents that live surrounding the present school, which hasn't been sorted at present. And here we're going for a bid to enlarge it, and we haven't sorted the previous problems. It really needs to be addressed at an early stage.
It will be, Councillor Spears, as part of the project team. The other comment you made, Councillor Spears, about the size of the design, one of the specifications for the submission of the bid is that the design is on a scale to 1 to 200. But what we will do is we'll make sure that all members of the executive get effectively a blown up design plan of it circulated to them. But the condition of that's attached to the bid is we submit a scale drawing of roughly 1 to 200, but we'll make sure you get a larger design plan sent to all the members today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Very succinct as usual.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hannah.
Good morning. Thank you, Convener. I just wanted to partly reiterate what Robert was saying. I think it's very important that we do consultation locally at a very, very early stage. I think often we wait until things are too far advanced before we consult with local people, and I think we need to get, I mean, given that this is on this agenda today, it's now in the public domain, and it's a bit worrying that there hasn't been consultation in advance of it going into the public domain. So I'm glad to hear that that will be done, and hope it will be done soon. But my second question is, in terms of the capacity, can you tell me what the current waiting list is? Because I know that there are some young people with complex needs who are farmed out, that's a dreadful word to use, I apologise, who have to be placed in other areas at huge expense. But I also understand there are some young people who are almost on a waiting list, but who are currently being dealt with within existing schools by within the existing schools by teachers. And I understand that there is a waiting list. First question is, can you give us an idea of the size of that waiting list, those young people who have not been placed, who really need a place? And secondly, is the capacity that we're proposing here adequate to deal with that, A, in the immediate future and thinking further ahead in the longer term future?
Okay.
Gary?
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Hannah. Your comments on the consultation, I'd have to say that it's standard practice for a lot of councils to put an outline bid in, and it's only if it's successful we do the full-scale consultation. We have done informal consultation here, but rest assured a fuller consultation will be undertaken. And just to say, to reassure members, in the way that we designed and built the existing Carn Grange High School, there was extensive consultation undertaken to do that. And I'd have to say that we successfully turned some parents round during that consultation, and the parents that see what they've got just now are wholesome in their support for what they've got just now. So we'll be doing that. In terms of the second question, Councillor, in terms of the waiting list, I think we probably, I'll refer to my colleague Mr. Mackay, whose area that covered, but I think we may need to come back to you and give you that information.
That's right.
I don't have it at hand unless David's got something that he can offer.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Yeah, Councillor Hannah, I'll get the definite figures for you. I understand there's 1 or 2 children who have got placing requests in for Carn Grange or the wings, etc. My team are working hard with them just now to make sure that they're either supported in their mainstream provision or within our enhanced provisions currently. And you are right, we have got a small but significant number of children that, as a result of the pressures in the system, have had to be placed externally at quite considerable cost to the council. But I'll speak to my colleagues and get those figures across to you as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Can I just say, having seen the project, the previous project from its inception through to conclusion, the huge amount of public consultation that was done and with parents, pupils, teaching staff and the local community with the existing Carn Grange was a joy to see, because they were very involved at an early stage, and there was significant influence because there was a lot of discussion around the therapy pool as well as the swimming pool. So there was a huge amount of influence at that time, and the local community, while there was concerns at that time, have become very much part of the school family now. And any visit to the school, I think you would be able to hear from the staff and the children exactly just how that all fits together. So I have great confidence that we will go through a similar process and from as early a stage as possible, but at this stage it is an outline, and in order to actually be able to take that next phase we need to be able to win the bid, otherwise there is no point in raising expectations and something that we may not be able to deliver. Okay, Councillor Nimmo.
Yeah, thanks convener. Can I just start off by agreeing with you? I think that the current Carn Grange High School is a fantastic building, a state-of-the-art building which was built under the previous Labour administration. It's worth noting. Gary, I've got a number of questions for you. The paper says that local authorities are having to upfront the capital investment in relation to this project if it goes forward. The current cost estimate's £23 million. So we've been asked to underwrite the total cost of the project, obviously subject to the funding that becomes available if possible from the Scottish Government. Is that correct?
It is correct, Councillor Nimmo. The requirement is that the councils will pay the capital funding in full, and if the bid is successful, the Scottish Government will give, in effect, up to 50% of that money back through a revenue stream, subject to meeting the 5 outcome metrics that I said before. Just to say, Councillor Nimmo, that details of it are in 5.4, and further details were given on the report that was taken to the council on the 20th September under the capital programme review. So we've already got that financial buy-in, the political agreement to do it. But what I can assure you is that once we get closer to financial close, a paper will be brought to this executive that will give the total details around the finances. I said earlier on, we're not sure because COSA leaders have still got to agree the weighting to be attached to each of the 5 outcome metrics. But once we get information of that, our report will be brought to this executive to confirm that. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Gary. The next question is in relation to the phase 1 and phase 2 funding. Did Falkirk Council apply for funding in that respect?
We didn't apply under phase 1 and phase 2, Councillor Nimmo, mainly because at the time phase 1 and phase 2 were on the go. We were undertaking quite extensive community consultations linked to the strategic property review, and what we decided to do was wait until the outcome of the strategic property review, which I alluded to in my earlier presentation, and look at what the communities were telling us. When that was reported back in May 21, it clearly said one of the key aims was to consider the development of an ASN campus at Carn Grange, and that's why we've taken this project through to fruition now.
Right, just on the SPR, we don't have any decisions in relation to the outcome for the SPR yet, as far as I'm aware.
There was a decision taken in terms of the agreement for the council property strategy on the 18th of May 21, as outlined in section 5.3 of the report.
Okay, thanks, Gary. The ongoing revenue costs to Falkirk Council, if the project does go ahead, do we have a figure, an estimate as to what that would be?
Again, Councillor Nimmo, it's a really good question. It's a question that we ask ourselves all the time. What we're going to do is, if the bid is successful, again, as I said earlier on, we'll come back. Part of the revenue stream that the government would give back if the bid is successful is a revenue money stream over a 25-year period, and that would effectively cover our costs, including the borrowing cost for the additional capital that I mentioned earlier on. But rest assured, if the bid is successful, a further report will come here that will give a full, as we always do, a fully detailed explanation of the finances that are around this particular bid. Fingers crossed that it is successful.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for the answers. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't have any other hands up wishing to speak. Therefore, can I ask for committee's agreement that allows this to move to the next stage and that the bid be submitted?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That concludes this morning's meeting. I look forward to seeing the outcome of the bid and the further development, and keep our fingers crossed for successful. But thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.